Emily Carter was the kind of woman people admired. Quiet but confident, kind-hearted, and fiercely determined. She grew up in a small town in Tennessee, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to make sure Emily never missed a meal. From a young age, Emily learned to be strong, to carry her own weight, and to fight for the life she wanted. She worked her way through college, earning a degree in accounting while juggling night shifts and tutoring kids on weekends. She had dreams, not just of success, but of love, a family, a future built on trust and devotion. When she met Ryan Mitchell, she thought she had found all of that and more. He was charming, ambitious, and quick to make her laugh. They met at a friend's birthday dinner, and from that moment on, they were inseparable. Ryan had a way of making Emily feel like she was the only person in the room. He listened, remembered the little things, and made big promises about a future filled with travel, children, and shared success. Within a year, they were engaged. Friends called them the perfect couple. Their engagement photos were pinned all over social media, her in a flowing dress, him holding her hand like she was the most precious thing in the world. Planning the wedding became a full-time project. Emily was hands-on with every detail: flowers, invitations, the venue, the cake. She wanted everything to be perfect. She believed this day would mark the beginning of something beautiful. The ceremony was set for early spring in a rustic vineyard just outside Nashville. Surrounded by friends and family, they exchanged vows under a canopy of twinkling lights. Emily wore lace, her hair woven with baby's breath. Ryan cried during his vows. Everyone clapped when they kissed. It was the kind of wedding that people talked about for weeks afterward. But underneath the surface, something wasn't right. Emily had begun to notice small things: a new password on his phone, last-minute work trips, and a shift in his tone when he spoke to her. She chose to ignore it. After all, love was about trust. She reminded herself that stress could make people act differently. Marriage was new, and maybe it was just growing pains. The honeymoon was short but sweet, a few days in Charleston filled with beach walks, seafood dinners, and shared laughter. Ryan seemed distracted, but Emily told herself it was just work on his mind. They returned home to begin their new life together. Emily started organizing the apartment, unpacking wedding gifts, writing thank-you notes. She was glowing, happy, and filled with hope. But Ryan stayed distant. He was glued to his phone, always stepping out to take calls, disappearing for hours without explanation. Emily's instincts whispered that something was wrong, but her heart begged her to believe in the man she had married. The man who said he loved her. The man who, just days ago, promised forever. She had no idea that her life was already unraveling. Emily tried to push away her doubts, but they grew louder with each passing day. Ryan had changed. His warmth had cooled. He came home late without warning, claimed to be working overtime, and kept his phone close, even taking it with him to the bathroom. The man who once stayed up all night talking about their future now barely made eye contact. Emily's friends noticed it too, though none dared say anything aloud. Behind closed doors, she started searching for answers, hoping to find nothing but fearing the truth. One afternoon, while doing laundry, Emily found a hotel receipt buried in Ryan's jacket pocket. The date matched a night he said he was working late. Her stomach twisted. She stared at the paper for a long time, hoping there was an innocent explanation, but deep down, she knew better. That night, while Ryan slept beside her, she quietly unlocked his phone using the fingerprint he had once trusted her with. What she saw changed everything. Dozens of messages. Photos. Voice notes. All from a woman named Vanessa. Some were recent, others went back months, well before the wedding. The content left no doubt. Ryan had been living a double life. He had proposed to Emily while continuing a full-blown affair. He had stood beside her at the altar while whispering love to someone else. And worst of all, Vanessa had no idea she was the other woman. Ryan had promised her everything too. Emily felt her heart shatter. Betrayal poured over her like ice water, numbing her body. She scrolled through every message, every picture, feeling anger build with every click. She had trusted him with everything, her love, her future, her vulnerability. And he had turned it into a joke. She stayed up until dawn reading their conversations, each word cutting deeper than the last. The next morning, she didn't confront him. She couldn't. She wasn't ready. She needed time to process, to plan. Emily started recording things, dates, times, conversations, even tracking his movements. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but documenting the truth made her feel less helpless. In public, she acted like nothing was wrong. She still wore her wedding ring. She smiled when people asked about married life. But inside, something was changing. The pain had created a space where love once lived, and that space was quickly filling with rage. Vanessa's identity wasn't hard to find. Emily saw her Instagram, her photos with Ryan, her captions about waiting for the truth to come out. It was clear Vanessa had been lied to as well. That should have made her a victim too, but Emily couldn't see it that way. She only saw the face of the woman who had been with her husband when he should have been with her. Her world had flipped upside down, and the pieces didn't fit back together the way they used to. A quiet, dangerous resolve began to take root. She no longer wanted explanations. She wanted justice. Emily's world became smaller with each passing day. Her focus narrowed to one thing, figuring out how to confront what had been done to her. She no longer cared about the apartment or the thank you notes that sat half-written on the kitchen table. The flowers from the wedding were still wilting in a vase by the window, untouched since the day they returned from the honeymoon. What had once been a new chapter of her life now felt like a carefully built lie collapsing in slow motion. She started driving by Vanessa's apartment. Not often, just enough to learn her routine. Vanessa left for work around 8 a.m. and usually came home just before dark. Ryan was there some nights, staying just long enough to convince them both that he wasn't a bad person. Emily watched him walk into that building more than once, wearing the same suit he kissed her goodbye in earlier that day. She never followed him inside. She didn't need to. She had already seen enough. Her journal was no longer about healing. It had become a record of betrayal, filled with time-stamped entries, printouts, and photos. She studied every detail, when Ryan visited, what Vanessa posted, and how Ryan responded when Emily asked him where he'd been. The lies were so frequent and effortless that Emily began to wonder how long he had truly been hiding who he was. By the end of the second week, Emily had made a decision. Not out of impulse, but from clarity. She had lived her life by the rules, being kind, loyal, and forgiving. And in return, she had been used. The justice system wouldn't punish cheating. There were no charges for emotional destruction. But she could no longer let herself be a victim. If no one else was going to stop him, she would. She withdrew cash from their joint savings account, enough to go unnoticed at first. She cleared her browser history, deleted her notes app, and threw away the wedding album. There was no room for sentiment anymore. The Emily who once dreamed of family portraits and anniversary trips no longer existed. In her place stood a woman with nothing left to lose. She bought a burner phone and created a fake social media account to message Vanessa. At first, it was just to test the waters, but Vanessa responded quickly. She had questions too, suspicions about Ryan's behavior, times he vanished without answers. Emily pretended to be a concerned friend of Ryan's and slowly fed her just enough information to get her worried. The pieces began to fall into place. Soon, Vanessa was asking to meet in person. Emily didn't reply right away. She needed time to decide if that meeting would be the moment everything changed. She spent that night staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, searching for the woman she used to be. But the only thing staring back was a stranger, calm, focused, and ready. Not for revenge, but for something final. Something irreversible. The day Emily finally agreed to meet Vanessa was filled with a strange mix of anxiety and determination. They chose a quiet cafe on the edge of town, neutral ground where neither could bring the weight of their tangled pasts to life. Vanessa arrived first, nervous but curious. When Emily walked in, their eyes locked, two women caught in the aftermath of the same storm. Neither spoke at first. The silence was thick, heavy with years of lies, pain, and shattered trust. Vanessa was younger, more fragile than Emily had expected. She looked lost, like someone who had only just realized her world wasn't what it seemed. As they sat, Emily watched Vanessa's hands tremble as she clutched her coffee cup. She felt a flicker of sympathy but pushed it away. Sympathy would not erase the years of deceit, the nights spent pretending, the dreams crushed under Ryan's lies. Without needing to explain, Emily pulled out a folder filled with screenshots, photos, and timelines she had painstakingly assembled. Vanessa's eyes widened as she saw the evidence. For the first time, she understood she was not the only one hurt. The man they both trusted had used them as pawns, lying to both with ease. The betrayal was deeper than either had imagined. But the meeting did more than just confirm the truth. It awakened something neither woman expected, a shared sense of betrayal that bonded them. They talked about the late nights Ryan spent away, the empty promises, the secret messages. They laughed bitterly at how blind they had been, and cried softly over the future they had lost. Emily realized that despite everything, Vanessa was a victim too, a pawn in a game played by a man who cared only for himself. For hours, they talked, planning how to move forward. They agreed they couldn't let Ryan's deception define their lives any longer. Emily proposed they expose him publicly, to ensure no one else would fall victim to his lies. Vanessa hesitated but eventually agreed. The pain was still fresh, but together they found strength neither had alone. That night, Emily sat at her kitchen table, drafting messages and gathering documents for a blog post she planned to share anonymously. It wasn't just about revenge, it was a warning, a beacon for anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation. She wrote about the signs she had missed, the red flags hidden behind charm and sweet words. She shared her story not to humiliate Ryan but to protect others. However, as the days passed, Emily's anger began to consume her in new ways. The weight of betrayal turned into obsession. Sleep became scarce. Her thoughts spiraled. She imagined confrontations, escapes, and punishments. The love she once held had been replaced by a darkness that clouded her judgment. The quiet woman who once dreamed of a happy life was slipping away. The final days moved like a storm, sudden and unstoppable. Emily's mind was a whirlwind of pain and cold resolve. Every moment she spent waiting for Ryan's return felt like the ticking of a clock counting down to a moment she couldn't escape. The betrayal had not just broken her heart, it had shattered her entire world and left her grasping for control in the only way she knew. When Ryan finally walked through the door that evening, his face was tired but smiling, unaware of the storm waiting for him. Emily's eyes were hard, distant. The man who once held her dreams in his hands now saw only a stranger, someone changed beyond recognition. There was no warmth, no forgiveness left. Only the weight of what had been lost. What happened next shocked everyone who knew Emily's story. In a sudden, violent moment, years of heartbreak and fury exploded into action. The confrontation was brief but deadly. Ryan and Vanessa, who had arrived unexpectedly that night, were gone before the police arrived. The town was left stunned, struggling to understand how a newlywed bride could turn from hopeful and loving to someone capable of such darkness so quickly. The investigation revealed the tangled web of secrets, lies, and betrayal that had led to the tragedy. Emily's journal, her messages to Vanessa, and the careful timelines all painted a picture of a woman pushed to the edge. It wasn't just a crime of passion, it was the result of a slow-burning pain that had turned into something uncontrollable. In court, the story captivated the nation. Some saw Emily as a monster, others as a victim who had lost everything. The truth was more complicated, a reminder that human emotions, when pushed beyond their limits, could become dangerous. Behind the headlines and court dates, Emily's story became a cautionary tale about the power of betrayal and the importance of honesty. It sparked conversations about mental health, the warning signs of emotional abuse, and the hidden struggles many face behind closed doors. People began to ask difficult questions. How can someone change so completely? What happens when pain is ignored? How far can heartbreak push a person before they break? Years later, Emily's name still echoed in conversations, not just for the tragedy but for what came after. While she served her sentence, she used her time to reflect, write, and work with others in prison who faced similar pain and loss. She became a voice for those trapped in silence, showing that even after the darkest moments, there can be a chance for understanding and growth. The story of Emily Carter is a reminder that love can be beautiful but fragile, and trust once broken is hard to repair. It warns that beneath the surface of happiness, pain can quietly build until it changes everything. Most of all, it teaches that the choices we make in our darkest hours define us, not just for others, but for ourselves. Emily's life ended one way but began another, a journey from heartbreak to hope, from trauma